We're back at the Public Sector Summit for Elastic here in Washington, D.C., and I don't like to do this.
Right.
But I'm doing this with your title because it's ridiculous.
Right.
Hussein Johnson joins us.
Right.
We're obviously related, so we're just going to, some biases out there. He's the Senior Cybersecurity Analyst, Zero Trust Lead, Policy and Risk Governance, Cybersecurity Director at OCIO, U.S. Army.
Yes, that's a lot of stuff.
One breath, you see that?
Absolutely, you did pretty good.
Thank you.
You did pretty good.
I'm a professional.
You did well.
Explain to me what you do in cybersecurity for the Army.
What we're primarily responsible for is developing the policy, making sure that policy is being written, reviewed, and actually pushed out to the entire Department of the Army. We work with other organizations to actually develop the policy, and because of the size of the Department of the Army, there's times when policy may be somewhere else within the Department of the Army, so we have to get that policy and make an overarching policy for that.
Are there challenges to that job that you think are unique to defense?
The sizing of the organizations. One of the things that happens when we actually did a policy gap analysis, right, we found that there was a 93% policy gap. And
what does that mean?
A 92% policy gap means that there was, in some ways, for Zero Trust, we did a policy gap analysis to see if we had enough policy to support the Zero Trust implementation plan, as well as the 91 target level activities that were created by the Department of Defense Portfolio Management Office for Zero Trust, right? So what we did was...
I'm going to unpack that a little bit because, as you know, I'm one of the slowest members of the Johnson family.
Okay.
So when you're talking about policy, the amount of policy, what does that mean?
The amount of policy that we did is every policy that was in the department, in the office of the Chief Information Officer, all DoD policy, everything that was above that, even executive policy.
And why do you need a volume of policy to implement a technology?
Because what happens is, in the Department of the Army, we do not operate unless there is a directive somewhere that supports what we're actually doing.
Do this.
Yet there we are. Now that's the most important thing.
So you got to have stop this kind of attack.
Right.
Is this kind of attack part of that definition?
Right. It's somewhat that. But the most important thing that you really have to do is you have to be able to validate and verify what you're actually doing. So that's what policy does. So if I say to you, you will walk down the street, make a left, and then go down to the next side and go take the A train, I can actually say, okay, show me how you get to where you need to go. And then you go down the street, you make a right. And then you go down the street, take the D train. That means you are not, even though the policy is there, you can't be verified and you can't be validated with that. And that's one of the things that we got to do. We got to make sure everything is standardized in such a way that things can be accomplished the way they need to be accomplished.
I kept waiting for you to name a train that doesn't go to Brooklyn, but
listen,
you did not.
I cannot.
You did name one that goes to Queens.
I got the 7 train. That's the one that
There's that one
that's
too.
the only one there.
Well, no, the A train goes to Queens eventually.
Yes,
but who wants to be on the A train that long?
That's right. That's for sure.
So this is really interesting. So talk to me about Zero Trust just generally. How do you explain Zero Trust to someone on the elevator? And then I want to talk about how it works in the government.
All right. Zero Trust is pretty much a concept. There was a gentleman named John Kindervog that actually came up with the terminology for Zero Trust.
Yeah.
But see, the difference with Zero Trust and the other policies is you don't trust anybody. The most important thing, that's why it's called Zero Trust. You don't even trust yourself. So when you're inside the network, you're already believing that the network is already compromised.
Right.
And since it's already compromised, you don't trust the data, you don't trust anything that's in the network until you can verify it. So as you're stepping through the network, you verify and validate yourself as you go through.
It seems like that concept's easier to get if you're talking about intelligence or defense.
Right.
And that people in your organization, the U.S. Army, might get that better than cybersecurity professionals get that in other parts of business.
But see, here's the difference is, like most of the people that you're dealing with have no idea what Zero Trust. Now, this is the Zero Trust Summit where we are.
Right.
These are Zero Trust people.
Right.
So you could talk Zero Trust all day long, all night long, all the time. But when you're talking to the regular soldier, the person that's on the ground, he ain't even thinking about Zero Trust. He's thinking about shooting his weapon, shooting his tank. When you're talking about other areas of getting things together, like making sure you're getting the information, that's important. So that's where Zero Trust come in. You have to actually validate and verify the information that you're truly giving or the information that's being used by the commanders, the war fighters, as well as the troops on the ground.
So let's talk about the current environment right now. It's different.
Right.
We could debate good or bad, but it's different. And I wonder how that's affecting what you're doing.
It's major because...
Or is it just too early?
No, it's real. It's already real. One of the things that most people don't realize, this is a different type of zero trust philosophy with the Departments of Defense as well as the other areas. Well, so this is the thing. It's not about a fat guy that's a gamer who decides now all of a sudden he wants to hack something.
Right.
We're talking about nation state actors. We're talking about people from other nations that are already penetrating our networks and testing our defenses on the cybersecurity level so that they know the things that they need to do to disrupt our way of life prior to whatever they decide.
And we have read in the press about North Korea, we've read in the press about China specifically having success at getting into government systems.
Oh yeah, I would sit back and this is the one thing, not only government system, but federal system. So one of the things that you'll notice when they actually talk about a federal breach, they'll talk about an adversary. They don't say, Jim is down in the basement and he got bored playing, a game, and then all of a sudden he decided to hack something to make himself look good amongst his friends. We're talking about nation state actors who are doing the things necessary to be able to test our resolve based on being able to disrupt our way of life. You're talking about banking systems, you're talking about electrical systems, you're talking about data, all the different systems that we use on the day, infrastructure, the things that will make us go crazy once it's gone. We are a very, very comfortable organization and a very, very comfortable nation. You know what I mean? You get rid of some light and some heat and you get rid of the HV in the summer, and that's not good.
I agree.
And that's what I'm saying.
It's getting hot in here. Tell me how you're using Elastic in the Army.
All right, from what I understand, they're actually using Elastic in many different ways as far as dealing with data and actually running some of the testing that they need to do. I'm not even part of any of those trials. I've actually learned some of these things today. The key thing for a lot of it is trying to develop the data mesh. See, when you're looking at zero trust, I look at it in a specific realm, right? Zero trust is the data getting out to the people that it needs to get to. So I'm the data. It's a very data-centric environment. So I'm the data. And since I'm the data, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to see who has the right to see me and who has the authority to see what I need to show them. And that's where the identity and access management piece comes into play. And that's what, and before it used to be like the identity and access management to the data. Now it's the data to the people you need to get it to. And Elastic, since they're a larger data.
Let me paraphrase. So instead of putting a wall around the data, you're putting access permissions on the data itself so that it can get to the people.
Exactly, and that's the key. Developing the attributes, developing the actual data tags that are required to allow you to actually not only know what the data is, but to get to the people who are requesting the data.
And the only people, only to those people.
Only to those people, and that will be based on what their attributes are within their security profile. And that's how that actually works. And that's really the major challenge. So you don't let somebody who's an admin go into a system and then decide to peruse to see if he can find what he needs to find. You let
we've seen where that goes.
We know where that goes, and there's still
there was a Booz Allen consultant who made some names for himself.
Exactly, and that's the most important piece, is that we're trying our best to make sure that we're not only supporting the warfighter effort, because that's our major mission, is to be able to provide the information that they need when it's time to fight. And when they're time to, or when they need, it's very more situational than we like to imagine, because it's the way the Department of the Army works is very, very agile. So even though it seems like one big thing, it moves more than we think it is, and it has to shift because you have to remain agile because the enemy is agile, and that's the most important thing you got to always know.
In private sector, there's a real focus on extracting value out of massive amounts of data.
Right.
And I can't imagine any organization has more data than the Defense Department and the Army.
Right.
I wonder what's happening in the Army as it relates to understanding the value and extracting value from the massive amounts of data.
Well, the key thing is data is information, and information is gold. That's the one thing, because if the more you know about your opponent, the more you know about a person, the more you know about a job, the more you know about anything, that's going to give you that much more of an advantage. So that's the reason why, because information is gold, and data is the cornerstone of that information. How do you transmit that data? How do you make that data move? Is it encrypted on rest and while it's transiting? You have to be able to get it to the people that need that information as quickly as you possibly can, because it could mean life or death, or it could be the difference between being successful or in the overall or not being successful at all. So that's the most important thing about data. It's like, The thing that's really amazing about Americans is we give up more data than we ever can imagine. In our cell phones and, TikTok and all these other areas. One of the things that people didn't realize is that TikTok is really a conduit to funnel data back to nation-state actors, and we do it ourselves. I mean, this one of those things.
We give it away.
We give it our
create
data
it
away.
And give it away.
We create it, we give it away. So that's the most important thing that most people understand. It's not one of those things where individuals are trying
surveillance.
to be right. It's surveillance, all those things. Everything requires a data point before you can actually get to it. And those are the things that are really important. And that's where the challenges come. How do you actually manage that data? How do you actually get the data to where it needs to be, to who it needs to be to, in the time you need to have it there?
Fascinating stuff. Hussein Johnson, with a very long title, from the U.S. Army, here at the Elastic Public Sector Summit in Washington, D.C.